Hi, welcome. My name's Alex. I'm the founder of Inonda, and in today's interview session for the Inonda podcast, where we interview emerging and industry leaders in their tech, I've got the gentleman in front of us today, Maxim, who runs PI Sims. So, thank you for agreeing to this interview, Maxim. I appreciate it. Looking forward to this one. Just to get stuck right in, Maxim, it would be great to just give everyone an understanding from your own words as to who PI Sims are, a bit about yourself, and then we can
Mhm.
take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, maybe it's easy to start with myself, Maxim
Yeah.
Korenyugin for that matter. Mechanical engineer, ex-General Electric Plastics, and that's actually where the whole story started because, like, back in 98, I was trained as a green belt, Six Sigma green belt, and that actually changed my life completely. Because I moved into the area of operational excellence consulting trainings, first inside General Electric Plastics, where I was eventually trained as a master black belt. And after that, since 2003, I've been doing that as a consultant, working for different consulting companies like Six Sigma Qualtech, BMGI, what you can see here. I'm still actually doing some work as a BMGI trainer, deployment leader. Um, and that brings us to the idea of the PySims because PySims as a company started about 7 years ago as a solution for, in a way, my own needs because I needed a good game. I was so tired of doing these stupid card games, like carrying around these papers, losing them on the plane or something like that. So we decided to do something more modern, and I joined with my ex-colleagues Michelle Ruin, and we formed the PySims. And our first product was the what we call Dell Sim. That's a simulation game that was supposed to replace all this old-fashioned Lego pressboard, whatever type of the games. And that's where it all started. And I started using it as myself, as I said. So I was doing it during my numerous trainings, online, offline. My colleagues and partners on BMGI were using it. And while doing that, we realized that there is a bit of limitation. We wanted to grow the market for that. But what we realized that the game itself, I mean, game is not self-sufficient. It's just a way of making the training more interesting. It's the way of giving people a chance of practicing the skills before they go and implement them in the real life, which is way more dangerous. So it's a kind of halfway through. It's very similar to real life and including all these human interactions, but still it's a safe environment because you don't break a real process, so to speak. Yeah, there will be no another Chernobyl because of if you fail. So, and that was the whole story. And then it's when we realized that a lot of companies they actually want a ready solution. So it's not just the game because the game still required to be embedded into the existing training programs. And some companies they didn't have training programs. Some companies did have a training program, but they were lacking skills or desire or both to actually take this game and introduce it into their trainings. It's a kind of a mix of situations like it's good enough, why would we need it, I need to learn new skills. So it's a typical change management situation for the trainers. And I have to say, I have to admit that the operational excellence trainers are kind of prone to be very change resistant, so to speak. So they're supposed to drive the change, but themselves, they just very traditional. So and then we came with the idea of this Kaizen manager training program, where we offer companies, our clients, ready solution. So we give them the whole training. The training is online based. We give them all the training materials. We connect them to the LMS where all the training materials are already there. So we just we train their trainers so that they can be self-sufficient, and like in 2 3 weeks they're actually ready to deliver trainings themselves, assuming that they do have trainers.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's where that's our next level um, in terms of the delivering operational excellence training in mass with a controlled quality at a fraction of the cost, comparing to using the external trainers, which are
Uh-huh.
quite expensive and are scarce, especially when you start talking about different languages, different regions in the world. So this solution is ready to go, can be translated easily, which I'm actually doing to one of the languages right now. So it's a few weeks time if you really put your efforts into that.
Mm.
And that's what we actually offering, but maybe that's what is even more important. Why would people need it all together? Like, what's the
Mm.
point of that, the whole thing? And that's an interesting development we've been seeing for last maybe 5 to 7 years. And now I'm start moving into my other head. So I'm talking like a consultant, trainer consultant, not just training material developers. And what we're seeing that's if you go back like 20 years ago, you would see that a lot of companies would have mass training programs like General Electric, Philips, you name them. Like a lot of big companies, they would say operational excellence skills is a necessity for us to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And General Electric trained about 60 to 70,000 people like myself, green belt trainer, green belt level, which is a 2 weeks in class with a project execution and so on and so forth. And if I look back, they got improvements, that's no doubt. So they calculated the actual savings. The savings were around 4 billion US dollars just from the green belt and black belt projects, as compared to the cost of the preparing of the resources, which were about 1 billion. So actually, it's a 400% return on investment into the training, which is not bad. But on the top of that, it was way more because, and you can look at that from a very different perspective because this program generated so many future leaders for the company.
Mm-hmm.
Because people were given a chance of showing themselves in an environment which is completely away from their day-to-day jobs. Like I was in sales, so I was given an opportunity to become a project manager, like in no time. That's you can do whatever. So that's your project. Try and execute it and deliver the results. And that actually was a very good leadership development program. And if you look at a lot of the studies, companies struggle like crazy with leadership developments. There is so many managers around. There is very few leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And that program was just because of the mass, because of the numbers. Yeah, you have like 80,000 people who are actually trying to do something which requires leadership skills, besides all these technical skills which are easier to transfer.
Mm-hmm.
It also requires leadership skills, and that's it. It's a good selection mechanism. You have
Mm.
80,000 people. Out of them, you would have a few thousand people who actually are good leaders, and your company gave them the chance to develop. Well, that's one aspect. The other one is that if you look at the numbers in terms of the uh, productivity growth, companies have been stagnating. European Americans have been stagnating in terms of the productivity growth for the last 10 years or so. And there are articles like there was a recent McKinsey article about that. But I mean, it's a kind of a known fact. That's from the technology perspective, you would see there's so many technology developments have been around for the last 10, 20 years, like all this artificial intelligence, data, all these advanced analytical models. And yet, if you look at the pure productivity numbers, they're not that spectacular, I have to say. So companies, managers, they do understand they underutilize this type of the modern trends. And one of the reasons is that the trends, they tend to live their kind of their own life. And in order to utilize all the benefits that this modern, super modern technology brings to the businesses, you need to have people who will play like a bridge role between the IT solution out of the box and your real day-to-day life and processes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a story what we've seen time and time and again. So you look at the process of the companies and you realize in order to achieve the breakthrough productivity growth, yes, you do need to have a modern equipment. You do need to have the investment projects, but investment they are costly. And also, you need to know how to adapt the out-of-the-box investment solutions to your real life. And this type of the operational excellence projects, they actually do serve that very well. So without people who actually can take all these modern data sources, modern models, and use them for the actual improvements, that's again, we're talking about the non-investment type of the projects and people who need to have skills to close this gap.
Mm.
And companies, they cut sharply for last 10 years on development of these skills. So there was so much hope that you buy, like you pay, like, I don't know, like a few hundred million for the IT solution, and IT solution will start increasing your productivity itself, and it's not happening. And that's the thing. So every time when you start looking at the process analytics, when you really go for a deep dive, and we've done a couple of them recently for oil companies, for metallurgical companies, as soon as you start diving into like what holds companies, what holds process back in terms of the efficiency growth, you see it's a smaller things. They just require a basic skills to understand the problem, find a solution, which is quite often it's just a change of the SOP, change of the some settings on your process, maybe increasing or decreasing the temperature a few degrees up or down, doing smaller things, but you need to have them in mass. You get into a single process of the oil refinery and you see there are hundreds of opportunities of doing small improvements. And the only thing after you've done this opportunity investigations, you just need to have people who can take this opportunity and turn them into the improvements. And we are talking about, again, a need of the hundreds, maybe thousands of the people from the business, from the processes, who are trained and prepared to execute these small scale projects based on a bit of analytics, a bit of common sense, teamwork, change management, leadership skills, all these type of things. And that's in a way what drives our belief that these type of the programs as Kaizen managers, what we're offering now, and we actually have a much bigger plans for that. Maybe we will be bringing some other products for that, but it make us believe that the need is there. And the training we are offering, it just removes some of the barriers, which are costs and the skills of the people who will be doing this type of deployments. So the problem which were actually solved by the G by just pouring money into that, there is a much more efficient way of doing that, and one of the ways we offer in our Kaizen Manager training program.
Yeah, it's interesting, Maxim. You just smashed it there in terms of just giving us a good holistic view. I think that is one of the best segments. Like we could end the interview there, mic drop kind of thing. But I think you're right. Some of the things I've been noting down is what you talked about when you had your experience working at a larger company, and that was what was the springboard for you to then get into kind of the operations type of role and mindset and thinking. Coming from a sales background like myself is crazy, because usually the regular salesperson isn't so organized, and for them to do any type of project management is a recipe for chaos.
That's true.
Yeah. But one of the things that I've always heard or believed in is kind of this triangle, which is there's the beliefs, the capabilities, and the skills for a person to grow in their role. And what you're saying is that you plug this skills gap. And because they did that at such a large volume, in your experience, it meant those people who already had the beliefs and the capabilities, they actually excelled into leaders that otherwise wouldn't have been the case, because they would have had that skills gap, that knowledge gap still there.
Absolutely.
So what you're seeing in the marketplace, from what I understand, is that there's two restrictions to companies, as you see, which is one is the cost, the investment of bringing in expensive consultancy. Also, the access. Are the consultants readily available? Are they available to get to the locations that you need them to be in? And then scale is getting this brought to the masses, which seems to be a common thread when we talk about operations directors. It's not necessarily about them upskilling themselves, but it's at these larger teams that you're talking in the volumes you're speaking about, the hundreds to thousands, that would benefit from this knowledge when it comes to Six Sigma. So for me, let's take a step back because this is going to be a question that I'm asking based on me not understanding Six Sigma completely, right? So it's not something that I've been exposed to, right? But for the average Joe out there that isn't in it 24/7, what is Six Sigma and why is it important to organizations?
Yeah, we can take on Six Sigma from historical perspective, but I don't think it makes much more sense any longer. Yeah, yes, it was developed in Motorola 1987 or something like that. But if you look at not from the history perspective, but from the business perspective, what is there? It's the a format of projects that are aimed at solving business issues without investing into the hardware. It's a non-investment type of the project that takes a problem, and the Six Sigma works the best when you have data which can be analyzed, but also the problem should be difficult enough to justify a few months of someone looking into that and finding the best solution for the problem. So it's a serious issue for the company in a process where you do have data, preferably, because then you would be applying some analytical techniques, and then in the end you will try to find a solution without much of the investment, other than the investment of the people and the team. When we talk about these numbers, and we need to understand that you cannot have like 80,000 people or full-time project managers in the companies. Like most of them, they were part-timers. People would continue doing their daily work, like, I don't know, being an operator on a production floor or something like that. But at the same time, they were given a certain problem, probably from their own area of expertise somewhere around near them, and they just do it step by step. And the algorithm, which was developed by companies, by Motorola, first of all, actually, it's the very standard and general way of solving the problem. So it can be applied for any type of the problem, manufacturing, non-manufacturing, anyway.
And you mentioned it being a bit outdated, or what is it that you feel? I guess a better question to ask is what is the philosophy behind PySims? So what is the? I know that you're probably taking some elements from that. Is there anything else that you're taking or into consideration when you've built this training program out?
Well, there were a few ideas which were taken from the very beginning. Well, first of all, we wanted to do that to keep on the story of being a generic training program. So this type of the approach can be applied, as I said, like Six Sigma in both transactional manufacturing world, doesn't really matter. So second, what we took is actually, it's not as heavy on mathematics. So we know that mathematics can be scared. A lot of people actually are scared of the green belt training programs because it's a bit of statistics and mathematics. So it's quite light on the mathematical side, and yet it still gives people very good chances of finding the root causes and solving the problem they were given to solve. So that's number two. And and the other elements I already mentioned, that the actual program is built in such a way that it's very efficient in terms of the trainers' time, because trainers can do several groups at the same time. Because most of the time, the students, they will be working either individually on the training materials online or in groups without direct involvement of the trainer facilitator, because in a way we are not talking about the trainers anymore. They are much more facilitators than the trainers. So basically they help people to get the maximum out of this training program. So they facilitate discussions, they facilitate the game, which actually where the whole thing started with, the Delsim game, which is a part of the training. And they can easily do 3, 4, 5 groups at the same time in parallel, just shifting the agenda and like having these online meetings whenever they have a window. So it makes the trainers way more efficient than you would have if you do it online training either via webinars or if you do it in class.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side, what we try to keep the efficiency in terms of the knowledge gains and skill gains for the students. So, and this was the balance we're trying to achieve. So, quicker, efficient, yet gives the same quality as a class traditional.
Interesting. So you made it more accessible. So
Yes,
OpEx.
absolutely, absolutely. That was one of the ideas to make it accessible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you think again, so like if you try to do mass training programs, if you try to reproduce what GE did like 20 years ago, I think like 20 years ago, GE would probably have like 100 more, maybe more trainers in order to do this spread, like this big program. But in order to get to this number of the trainers, it would take you years nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But with this type of approach, you can do it way quicker because, I mean, you need much fewer trainers.
What is the kind of timeline on rolling something like this out?
You can do, I mean, as I say, so it's a very basic mathematics. Your trainers, if the trainers know a little bit about operational efficiency, operational excellence prior to coming to our program, they will be ready to start doing their programs, their groups in probably like 3-4 weeks time. And then they can do, my guess would be, since it's about 20% of their time, so they can easily do 3 groups and in like in 1 month's time you would have probably 100 people trained by one trainer. So that's, if you want to do the explosion, that's one of the ways to go. It's very quick. Now, in order to be fair and in order to kind of to give the other side of the coin, of course the training itself does not solve the problem completely. You still need to have the front end, which is actually identifying the opportunities for the improvements.
Mm-hmm.
So companies do need to have this opportunity identification algorithms, mechanisms, whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
So this front part would give you the hundreds of the project ideas. The training would give you hundreds of the skilled people to execute these projects. And when you measure these two, you have millions, maybe billions of the effects in like in year time.
Wow. So what you're saying is that the first step in the process is the opportunity identification, seeing where there is opportunity for
Absolutely.
growth or savings.
Absolutely.
And then from there, you've got training that can be rolled out
Absolutely.
per manager. Is that can run those groups of 100?
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at every manager can upskill and uptrain their department of 100 individuals.
Yeah, I would probably still use not directly the managers because I mean it requires some skills. I mean you would need to be a skilled facilitator
Mm-hmm.
when you go into that. So, but in the companies where they do have their operational excellence training resources, they can easily upgrade their resources for that task. Like
Okay.
you would have we work with a company like AkzoNobel, for instance, in the
Yeah.
Netherlands, and they do have their master black belts. That's the
Mm-hmm.
old role of the trainers for Six Sigma. So these guys can learn this program in like no time, and then they just basically they can upskill. So currently they are facing the issue because they would like to train more people, but their current way of doing that is actually classes. And if you start training like that, you would do like one group at a time. You would probably have to travel somewhere to the like location, like production location, and it's not that efficient. If you just upgrade them to this program, they can do 100 people easily in parallel in like multiple locations. You can even play with like combining people from multiple locations and doing like a networking event on the top of everything.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
also you can add another twist on that, like companies like Philips, they used to have their high potential program linked to this type of the project. And so essentially they would say, you, John Smith, you are part of the high potential program now because we identify you as a high potential person. And then you just, in order to make to prove that you are high potential, you need to become a green belt, a project manager at some time, and just complete a couple of the projects and show that indeed what we have seen in you before, it's proven now, and then you can continue your growth. So
Wow. So what
it's
you're saying is like the old way of doing this is that you have to run classes, you have to travel to the location.
mm,
It's going to be a group of 7 people. Is that
mhm.
right? Group of
Well,
seven,
it would be maybe 7, maybe 50, yeah, between 7 to 15 people, yeah, yeah,
7 to 15
yeah,
people.
and then
And
the other problem with that approach is that it's the best. Any type of the operational excellence training is works best. You can do that training, the program what we're doing in the Kaizen Manager. It's if you do it in the class non-stop, that would be a full week.
hmm
But the problem is that if you do it in full week, then after full week you told the student all the story, but it does not really work like that because you would probably need to split it into the 5 sessions, 1 day each, and make them executing their projects in between. So they are given a piece of the information, like first portion of that. They go back to their projects. They execute the same portion in their real time projects. Come back to the class, learn another piece, go execute. So that would require for the trainer to come there 5 times for 1 day, and that is becoming already like it's so difficult to plan. At least when you do it for black belt, that's a 5 week training. So you come there for 1 week, you train them the first bit, then you leave them for 1 month.
hmm
They would do their project execution and you would do the coaching for them during this month. So giving them individual help, moving them with the projects. Then you come for the second week, or at least it's a 1 week at a time. When you do a shorter trainings like the Kaizen Manager, you would have to do it like day and then like maybe 1 or 2 weeks out. And can you imagine this stuff of
Oh
traveling? Yeah, you
wow.
will be like
Okay.
just
So
flying around in the circles.
yeah. So what you're saying is it's multiple trips, one group at a time.
Yeah.
You having to it's very time intensive, and I'm assuming also with retention because they've just got that small period.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So basically, they will be dragged away during this 1 day, and it's very difficult to arrange. Even like you would probably have realistically, you have to take them away from the office location
hmm
because they will be quite likely they will be dragged to some business discussions during this 1 day of the training. So it's becoming really not so efficient anymore.
Yeah, no, I get why they're not spending so much money on it because it sounds like a very big hassle. I mean, I can
It is
completely.
for everyone, for everyone. I mean, you seriously. I
Yeah.
mean, you start talking to the companies. It was like, why don't you guys train everyone on some basics like waste identification? And they were like, yeah, it's a good idea, but how we do that?
Mm.
And then they say, okay, we do have some introduction training, which is just videos and a couple of the quizzes in the end, but it's totally inefficient because people just watch for that, maybe doing whatever, chatting, watching the internet, whatever, random answer to the questions, they're done.
Yeah, yeah. So what is
Yeah.
different? So I get it from the kind. So we've on that side because that's a really important
Mm,
thing that I want to talk about. But what you're saying is the first thing is the old way, going to classes, traveling multiple times, one group at a time of 7 people, maybe
mm,
15 max.
mm.
What you've got is the ability to train 100 people
Yeah.
in one go.
Yeah.
You don't have to travel. More so, you can actually have multiple locations involved, and
Yeah.
you can make a
Absolutely.
networking event out of it.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, talking about that second layer that you just touched upon, they've got some basic training, maybe
Mm-hmm.
got some videos
Mm-hmm.
that they're probably watching with a
Mm-hmm.
coffee and YouTube on another screen.
Yeah.
Um, how do you solve that problem? What is different about your training that?
We split it again. So if I look at the time scale of the training, so as I said, it's about 40 hours in total. But
Mhm.
out of this 40 hours, the actual video lections, that's the most boring part, is hardly 20%, probably like about 15.15%. And the rest is, I mean, I'm thinking probably about 40 to 50% of the time student actually spend doing something during our training program, it's interacting with the group and applying their skills. So it's way more practical than it you typically have in the class. And that's due to the utilization of this DEL-SIM part, because they played around, they discuss their findings, they look at the process, they look at what works and what does not work, and it generates, in most of the groups, it generates the eagerness to solve that. It's a bit like this escape room type of situation. You are put into the absolutely impossible environment, and you need to figure out how to solve it, how to get free.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of I was caught speeding one time, and I had to go to a speed awareness course,
Mm-hmm.
and because it was actually really interesting. It was, you go into it, um, and you think, oh, I know everything about driving. I don't need to go to this. And then I went, and it was actually really interesting. I learned some stuff that I wouldn't have learned. And at the end of it, I thought there was going to be a test, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very engaged because I knew that I would have to demonstrate retention of knowledge. So there
Mm-hmm.
was an incentive for me to pay attention.
Right.
Whereas it sounds like that's what you're able to replicate. I mean, to a much bigger degree than
Mm-hmm.
just tests, because you've got the actual simulations there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it gives people an incentive to actually learn, because they'll be able to apply
Yeah,
the
they
learned
see
knowledge.
how it's applicable. Yeah, because I mean
Yeah.
that's it's so much that one of the root causes why this operational excellence trainings are not so efficient, because people don't understand how to apply it. I mean,
Mm.
you give them a chance of applying that in real life, but I mean, there's so many barriers for application of that thing. Yeah, because I mean, you can imagine that you have like a process owner and like a newly trained project manager comes and eager to do, like, I don't know, like maybe multifactorial experimentations, finding like the best way of doing the process, and they will be held back by the process owner saying, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, it's too dangerous." And
Mm. Oh,
here
okay. So
they,
in the real world environment, because
yeah, yeah, it's you
yeah.
give them, like, if you look at the curriculum, traditional curriculum in operational excellence, you basically give them that much, and how much they can apply in their first project, probably like that. But
Hmm.
it's reality, because you prepare them for different situations. The second project will be slightly different, because not projects are never the same. I mean, there's always some different skills they would need to use in order to solve the problem. So you try to give them in the training everything just to make them ready. That's like, in a way, like when you train like a special forces, you train them for Sahara and you train them for Arctics. But the
Mm.
next time they will be either in Sahara or in Arctics.
Mm.
So that's basically, it's very difficult for them to create an environment where basically they can apply all the skills at the same time. And that's in a way what we're trying to do with this DEL-SIM game. We
Mm.
created a game in such a way that actually this is the place where they can apply everything they learn. So basically everything, every bit of the skill they learn in the theory becomes applicable in the game. So that's the rule. So they can see how every skill solves a small particular problem, and they
Yeah.
can see that and they can learn it, and that's actually the best way of doing the thing.
It's reinforcing behavior, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
when I'm it says simply. I mean, sometimes when I'm reading books and I take notes with a pen, it helps me retain it better just by simply taking the action.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
it sounds like what you're doing is rolling out the ability for them not just to be trained and upskilled, but also to retain that information and
Mm-hmm.
then practice it in real world environments.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And
yeah, go on. Sorry, go
yeah,
on.
I was about to say that basically, and this is the thing. So basically, now we go on, like, we're using a very different level, altitude, so to speak, from which we're looking at the whole thing, because now we're talking about specific things, how the training is built, but we can also look at that from the 10,000 feet perspective and see how this helps company becoming more efficient. And I think one of the strongest sides of PySims is that we are actually able to look at from all the levels. So we do understand how the training programs are being built, but at the same time, we understand how these programs help companies realizing their strategy. I mean, if someone needs to have like an advice on that one, if a client wants to have an advice on that one, that's easily available as well.
Yeah. So talk to me about some of the outcomes that have occurred from this rollout. So what can a company expect? Maybe you can use some real life
Yeah, I
examples.
mean,
Yeah.
there's a basic mathematics what you can see. So we have our percentages in terms of like what's the percentage of the people who completed the training, they would execute their project successfully. We have statistics on what's the like typical benefit size per project. Well, I mean, we're talking. I mean, we're talking median effects, yeah, because we have some projects that might easily generate like €1 million, but
Hmm.
that would be a very rare event. So the typical effect of a single project, Kaizen Manager project, it's probably about 10 to 20,000 euros on an annual base.
Hmm.
So the idea again is that you change something and you measure the result of that, and that's actually one of the things what companies need to learn is how to measure the results and see the results. It's
Hmm.
actually so many mistakes could have been avoided if companies simply have a rigor of actually measuring the results of the projects and the changes they're doing. But if you
Hmm.
do it proper, so basically you measure it over usually it's a 12 months time after the completion of the project, and it would be somewhere between 10 to 20,000 euros.
Hmm.
And if you look at the cost perspective, you probably have a cost of a few hundred euros of training the people. These are not your FTE full-time employees, so basically that's your part-timers, so you don't have extra costs related to that, and everyone can find like 10 to 15% of their time in between their daily tasks in order to execute this type of the projects. So this part from the business perspective is for free. So if you talk about like people you can prepare in a month, like 100 people, probably about 60 to 70% of them would complete the project. It would be 70 people times 10,000. That's your
Oh
expectation.
wow, that's per individual. That's what I was thinking.
Absolutely, absolutely. And every time you look at this thing, because we've been looking at the overall effect of the operational excellence programs from the like cost and the project benefits perspective, and you're talking about 3 to 700% pretty much every time, assuming that the company knows how to make their project managers busy, giving them the
The,
problems to be solved,
the right problem.
executing the front part properly.
So
And
in
that's
terms
it's a very, I mean, it's very efficient. I mean, in a way, sometimes, I mean, I know it's maybe we can cut it off later on, but uh, in a way, it's way more efficient than actually pumping the oil out of the land. Because I mean, you get much more money from the people's skills than from the oil from the land.
mm, yeah,
We use that quite a few times in the discussion with oil companies. It's
yeah, I
actually
can
it's
imagine.
actually development of the skills. It's better than to make a new rig.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that resonates a lot with them.
Yeah.
So just on that, so in terms of the types of companies that you see, so
Hmm.
there are manufacturing organizations out there. One of the you mentioned one um, way that, or one potential reason why they would need to start utilizing this kind of solution, which was that they've invested heavily into technology. And net, I remember being an organization. They were a company with a software, so I was trying to sell it. I was trying to give it away for free. And the first thing that people were going, I thought it was going to be an easy kind of sell. They were
Hmm.
like, no, it's not that the cost of the software, it's the cost of training everyone on this solution. That is the investment we have to make. So whilst your software is free, it's
Hmm.
great, but it's going to require us to upskill everyone and train everyone, which is
Yep.
going to be a massive headache. I had an experience working for a large organization where they spent millions of pounds on the new CRM and it
Hmm.
didn't take hold. So they spent
Absolutely.
it all for nothing. They had to revert back to
Yep.
what they were using
Hmm.
because there wasn't the guidance or the necessary support to be able to utilize the new systems. So people kind of step back from it,
Mhm.
are reluctant to leverage the new technology. So I can see how the training, given that foundational layer of systems and processes, can be used to further augment the technology that you are implementing. So I can see that being a massive use case. Are there any other instances top of mind where manufacturing organizations, companies in general, where you can see there's an opportunity that this can make a significant impact?
Yeah, one of the areas for the manufacturing companies actually to look at their cost efficiency or energy efficiency type of the thing.
Mm,
So the how much energy they spend per ton of their produced, because they have their current levels. And I mean, if you ask a process owner, unless there is like a big push from the top on like cost cutting on that sort of things, he's like, yeah, we're doing fine. We're just doing fine.
mm,
But very basic mathematical approach will tell you that every process has opportunity to be more efficient. If
mhm,
you just simply take a cost of the 1 ton of steel being produced, like euros per ton, it will vary over the time. And any variation means that sometimes you spend more, sometimes you spend less. And but already the fact that sometimes you spend more, sometimes you spend less, that means you can always spend a little bit less. You
mm,
just need to make an extra effort. You just need to look at like why last week it was maybe like 10% less than week before. Look the reason, see if that's an opportunity for actually making it a bit lower every time. That's your project. And
mm.
as soon as you start looking seriously at every element of your cost, for especially specifically for manufacturing, you see how many opportunities you have to become a little bit more efficient.
And is
And but
it?
again, so it's a small thing. So basically, you are like you have like a piece of equipment, and you maybe can save like I don't know, as I said, maybe like 10, 20,000 euros a year, which is not huge. No one is if you come to I don't know to like investment committee and say, hey, I have an opportunity of the improvement of 10,000 euros a year. They would say, go away. Don't waste our time.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the place for these hundreds of the small projects executed by these skilled, trained people. And it's
Mm.
everywhere. It's just everywhere. Like everywhere we have, it's you can say it's a kind of a piece of philosophy. Everywhere we have a variation, you have an opportunity to be better.
Yeah, it's
And
like
you,
a bucket with holes, little small
mm-hmm,
holes in it, and they're
mm-hmm,
leaking
yeah,
cash.
yeah,
And you may be a small fish in this big bucket, and
yeah,
it's hard to see all the holes
yeah,
or to manage
absolutely.
all of them.
Yeah,
But if you
absolutely.
have like a blanket, which is going to cover all the holes at once, or at
Mm-hmm.
least give a bit
Yeah.
more support from the water that's leaking, then that's a
And
good
the
thing.
other thing is, yeah, because of how companies, a lot of companies, they try to solve this type of the problems of utilizing these small opportunities. They just simply do it like, kind of the giving employees opportunity to come up with their ideas of the improvements. That would
Mm,
be a typical way. But the problem with that is that it very quickly, if these people are not trained uniform way,
mm,
each of them will come with their own vision of what is the problem, and everyone will come with their own way of solving the
mhm,
problem. Someone needs to keep an eye on kind of control that they don't break something else. That's other like another typical situation. People see very narrowly just their piece. Still, someone needs to keep a control. That's the saving I'm doing on my piece of the equipment will not cost like 10 times more down the stream. So
mm,
someone needs to look at these ideas, evaluate them, and it so quickly becomes a nightmare for the managers. They just like it's easier for them to put like pull a full break on all this improvement than actually looking for this 10,000 years worth of the improvement ideas like in hundreds every day. So
mm,
it requires standardization in terms of the way they are identified as opportunities and they are being solved
mhm.
because then it's just execution. Then it's just execution. So it requires a standard way of finding the opportunities and realizing.
Yeah. It's like solving small problems for big results.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, so it's always it's all the game. It's about the big numbers.
Mm, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Mm,
I remember watching a documentary on Netflix. I didn't catch it all, but it was the WWE, so Vince McMahon, and The Rock is being interviewed, and he's
hmm
talking about asking for double the pay of Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Vince went, "Okay, you need to understand the business."
mm
And I've had another experience where it's like when I went in and trained a company in how to utilize LinkedIn, for example. There was
hmm
26 sales managers that now
hmm
understood LinkedIn. They went from not being able to generate any leads themselves to then all of them being able to generate leads. And that was a small problem because
hmm
each of them not generating the leads is not that much of a problem. But they had a big problem, which was that they weren't getting any new business in. So they wanted to hire new sales reps.
hmm
And they saved the money because the sales reps that they needed to hire, um, they already had the staff in house to cover
hmm
what they needed to be done. It was just this layer of skill that was needed, this knowledge. And I think even on that basis of understanding the business, understanding how to think, all of that stuff makes a much bigger impact into an organization than sometimes just a technology that looks
Yeah, no,
shiny,
absolutely,
glamorous.
absolutely. Yeah,
But
and we have been there. We made the full circle of basically relying heavily on the people's skills in terms of the change management and the leadership. We went all the way to the technology, hoping the technology would solve all that, and we just sit back and cash in. We're probably back to where we were 20 years ago. We realized we need to work hard again.
mm,
Not ChatGPT, not all these fancy mathematical models. It's actually people have to do the job once more.
yeah, it's the understanding that leverages the tools so much better.
Yeah.
Um, that makes a lot of sense. So, just to recap from what I understand, Maxim, is that the first step, if you one of what, so it sounds like one of the biggest ways that people can get involved is looking at look if you've got any type of cost that you want to analyze,
hmm
there's a massive opportunity right there and there.
Absolutely.
If you've invested in technology and you're not seeing as many returns as you would like, if you've opened up new locations and you need to
Mm.
align teams, the first step is that opportunity identification is looking at where are the opportunities, where they can come from. How do they get that working with you? So what is the step in that process today?
In terms of identifying opportunities, quite often it's also it's outside of the current Kaizen Manager training program,
Mm.
but it's quite often it's a mixture of the consulting and the training project.
Okay,
So
so they sit
quite
down.
often we do a couple of the pilot projects ourselves. We set up the infrastructure for them. We train them. We show their people there to be analytics, how it
Mm.
has been done. We transfer the knowledge. We coach them on the way so they have the skills. We make sure that they have the skills, and we eventually exit this part of the process, and they taking it over from us.
Hmm.
And then we probably would do just the training of the new analytics groups, and
Hmm.
they execute.
Yeah. So that first step is they sit down with you, they understand the opportunities that are
Absolutely,
available to them.
absolutely.
That allows you to then go in, produce some training that is going to
hmm
help them
Yep,
with opportunities that you've identified and doing that at a scale that they wouldn't have been able to do
absolutely.
otherwise.
Mhm.
And then from there, taking note of the improvements as well as replicating that for the new staff or for new regions or for additional regions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
And as soon as they start identifying opportunities, they start bringing in the skills of solving these problems, realizing these opportunities. So these Kaizen managers.
yeah, it's
So
amazing. I
because
mean,
I mean, it makes sense at the point when you start training people in execution skills like Kaizen manager, you need to have identified opportunities. So each of them actually on the day one of the training is given his own task, so he can think already how he's going to solve it, applying the tools which were given to him.
okay, cool. So on that, I mean, are there any tips that you can present for someone? I mean, I'm not in manufacturing,
Mhm.
but let's go with manufacturing. I'm sure anyone can take from this some useful. information. If let's say off the back of this video, someone's watching and they want to identify some opportunities themselves, what are kind of the questions they need to be asking themselves to help them to understand maybe where there's that opportunity?
They would need to look at two sides. They would need to look at the P&L, at the cost side, most likely, yeah, and start doing like classical waterfall Pareto type of the analysis, bringing it down to the key pieces of the cost elements, like being a piece of equipment or being specific chemical that cost them a lot, and so on and so forth. That's number one. So you need to do a little bit of like prioritization in terms of directions. Then you would need to look at the variation. So the best way of looking at the actual cost is to make cost relative to the volumes of the production.
Mm-hmm.
So you just do, okay, like I said, like euros per ton of steel produced, or euros per catalysts used for a chemical reaction per tons of the final product. Look at the variation over the time, just do a bit of a time series study, see how big is the spread in terms of this relative cost elements. And the bigger is the spread, the bigger is the opportunity. So there is mathematics. I can throw away a few mathematical terms, like you can take a delta between Q2, which is a median, and a Q3 as an indication of how big is the opportunity. That's quite often what we do. It's a measurement of the spread. The bigger is the spread, the bigger is the opportunity. So
Okay.
you can always bring your cost to the Q1 or productivity to Q3 with a certain efforts, and most likely these efforts will not require investment at all. So that's the area for the Kaizen manager.
So you're taking that profit and loss sheet, looking at your costs, looking at the variables within
Mm-hmm.
those costs,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
based
See
on
the
the
variation, make the box plot. Look at the difference between like the median and your
and what is
Q1
that?
if it's a cost.
Yeah, and what was that mathematical equation that you threw out there? What was the one that?
That's the box plot. That's a small thing that essentially that is calculating your quartiles. So you basically saying I have a measurement of the relative cost over the time. You calculate the median, that would be the center,
Mhm.
and you would have Q1. And Q1 is the quartile, first quartile. That's the border of the lowest 25% of your measurement. Let's say you take daily measurements of your relative cost per ton of the product.
Mhm.
You take the border of the first quartile as the good indication of how good your process could be without a major change, because you have achieved a cost of that low or maybe even lower in 25% of your days.
Mhm.
And then you just want to bring your average median closer to this Q1, and that's your opportunity.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if you can do like a 25% of your days, you are as good as that level. Why don't you be more than 25%? Why
Yeah.
don't you be 50%?
Mm.
And that's opportunity.
Yeah. And I'm not good at math, so for you to explain it like that and for me to understand means that a lot of people understand that breakdown. So thank you for that, Maxim. That's
No
really
problem
helpful.
at all.
And I think that a lot of people can use that to identify some opportunities for growth. And then
And
from
we just barely scratch the skin in that direction, because you can have a very interesting and sophisticated mathematical models that can pinpoint you to the specific opportunities. But that probably will sufficient for now. A lot of companies, if they start doing just basic math, what I just described, they will be way better than they are now.
yeah, well, that's I think the first step, right? Something that's easily
Absolutely,
accessible
absolutely,
to the
absolutely,
general audience. And what you're saying there is like we can like that's just scratching the surface. If they come to you, and they can get an even more in depth breakdown.
absolutely,
And then
absolutely.
from there, you've got the solutions to put in place to be able to start affecting some of those changes
Hmm?
that need to happen to make that saving or to
Yep,
increase their returns, and then grow the business from there. So it makes a lot of sense there, Maxim. Um, the I guess more on a personal note,
hmm,
what you've gone through, it sounds like three different types of roles. So you've been in sales, you've done been in project management, and now you've started your own business, and you're doing, what would you call this? Is this Six Sigma consultation when you brand yourself, or is this more than
No,
that?
it's not Six Sigma anymore. I mean, Six Sigma was. I learned what I'm doing now from Six Sigma because Six Sigma was the first method of operational excellence I learned myself and practiced
Mhm.
for long. But now it's way broader because Six Sigma still has a bit of a stigma of being either overly complicated or strongly manufacturing and so on and so forth. Neither is actually true, but still it has this type of the approach. And uh, there has been a big demand on simplification of people of what people are learning as a part of the operational excellence. Like one of the trends what I've been seeing at if I look specifically at Six Sigma is like, can we make it simple, please? We can't stand it anymore.
Mm.
People don't understand that, and that's more or less what we've done. We realized that again using the same Pareto logic, that's 80% of your problem in the beginning. So companies in a way are back to where they were like in like 20 30 years ago in their loop of or the spiral of the operational excellence we have a way more mathematics. That's amazing, actually. We have way more data now. Like we probably have like 10,000 times more data than I would have when I started doing projects in G like long time
Yeah, yeah,
ago.
that's for sure.
At the
100%.
same time, people are begging for something simpler, which is not mathematics, because
Mm.
they somehow try to make it simple. And that's what we're trying to give them. We're saying, we understand, people, that you are again in the beginning of your operational excellence. You don't need to have 50% of your staff being able to do, I don't know, neuron chains or multiple regression type of the analysis. That's okay. Let's start with the basic things because you still have now, you have so many low hanging fruits. Let's do it. And the Kaizen
Sure.
manager specifically for that piece. It's
So,
simple.
yeah,
Let's
so
do that. And then we'll see some of your people who actually learn Kaizen manager, they will ask for more. These are the future leaders of
yeah.
operational excellence for you. You give them first thing, they say, hey, can we do a little bit more? Can we use more of this data? We're sitting on the bunch of this data, terabytes of the data. Can we do more than just basic analysis, what you just described with this box plot? Of
Mm.
course we can. But
Yeah,
that will be already the next step.
yeah, well, what's really interesting about your story is that you've kind of refined and you've made it your own. You're taking not just Six Sigma, you're taking years of experience, and you have understood much within the kind of philosophy that there's certain elements that are more important to be focused on, that can be
Absolutely.
simplified and executed on to see the results that they want. Um,
It's not about tools, it's about the roads.
mm,
And that's the thing. That's what I learned hard way.
yeah, yeah, okay, so you've made
Because
some.
I'm actually being an engineer, I probably for me in the beginning like the tools. I mean, I was so excited. Probably one out of my class, I was the only one who was so excited of being able to do regression analysis. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
wow, I can do that on my data. Wow. I mean, I was trained on this thing like when I was at university, and then like 20 years I was doing just basic engineering stuff, and like, wow, again, I can do like a proper mathematics. But I was one out of 100 maybe. But then you realize that actually, okay, two is good, but the road is way more important. The road where you want to be, and where you want to come by this road.
Hmm. Well,
And
the interesting thing, Maxim, and this is what I wanted to hear about, because I think this is, whilst this is not directly related to PySims, I think feel it is. So you've been traveling uh, more than the average person. So you're talking about roads here, the
yeah,
road that you've traveled.
true. Yeah,
So
that's probably, yeah, that's linked.
yeah, so I'd love to just know how many countries have you visited now?
I haven't done an extra count for last few years, probably around 100 by now. But I'm not. I never had a kind of like tick box type of the
You don't have
mentality.
that left. And
Yeah, I don't care about that. So there are a few countries that I kind of, yeah. Well, if I go there, that's okay. If I don't go, that's fine as well. I mean, but at the same time, I have been to same country multiple times, like India or Indonesia or Brazil. So
Yes.
that's more about the things to do and to see there, and then I mean, the countries in a way it's just like a geographic curiosity that someone drew the line of Indonesia and Malaysia like that, like former empire style. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, no, that's.
But
I mean,
100 companies, I mean,
100 100 countries.
it's not like, it's not normal, I don't think.
No, no, probably not. I mean, yeah, some
Thousands of
people say
people.
like, why you do that?
No,
Uh,
yeah. I think for me, if you speak to a lot of people, they love traveling. I went and traveled with exhibitions, so I always related it to work. But I mean, it's very impressive, and I'm sure that you've been to some amazing locations, some places you've named I haven't been yet, and I'd love to go.
mm,
Um, what what are some places that are on your list of places you've been, that are quite unique that you feel not many people have been? And what was the reason that prompted you to go there?
I mean, in a way, I'm probably quite standard in terms of what attracts me. I mean, within this non-standard group, I'm quite standard. Yeah, so I love jungles. I love glaciers, mountains, type of the environment. I like wildlife. So that already defines more or less where I'm going. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
want to see Amazon jungle or like the whole area. I go there, like, I don't know, I've been to Amazon jungles like maybe 6, 7 times
Oh yeah.
from
Oh, that's
different countries, from Peru, from Brazil, 3, 4 times, from Bolivia, from Colombia, and so on and so forth.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a feeling of being there, which somehow correlates for me with the feeling of being alive.
Mm.
You come to places like that, which are quite different from the Netherlands where I live,
Hmm.
and it's not too difficult to be different from the Netherlands in a way. And yeah, and that's actually yeah, you come to this place and you just look around and feel alive.
Yeah, I relate with that. Like, I love landscapes, nature,
Yeah,
wildlife. I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
UK
I
is
mean, it's more like it's changed over the time. So I'll probably do less culture and more nature for last 10 years.
mm-hmm.
Still love both, but yeah, still love traditional cultures. From that perspective, probably my favorite place still is India.
Mm.
I love India.
Hmm.
I mean, I've been lucky in terms of like traveling for work a lot. So I mean, like in my beginning of my consulting career, I would probably have like 1 week of the delivery in India, and then 1 week off, and then another week of delivery. So I would just stay there for 3, 4 months in a row, and basically doing the travel in between. So I
Yeah.
would stay like in a proper 5-star hotel somewhere in Mumbai, do the training, then I'm on the road with my backpack, then I come after 1 week like that, clean up properly, and then do the next week of the delivery.
I can imagine it gives you a lot of perspective on life because with work, I got to travel to places I wouldn't otherwise have been,
Hmm?
and it was fascinating. You mentioned some of the places in South America. I went to Panama. I
Hmm?
got to ride a train with a glass roof through the jungle. You're seeing monkeys swinging through. It's just an experience that I'm not getting in London.
Yeah, that's
And
true. That's what I'm
people,
saying. Yeah,
yeah, you
that's what.
meet, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
So,
it yeah, it's just it still keeps me going. I
mm,
mean, when I think about the next place I have, I mean, it changed a little bit over the COVID times because before COVID, I would have my family. I'm lucky to have a family who fully supports me in terms of my traveling, so
yeah,
they always go with me. And from that perspective, like before COVID, we would have our plans for like next 18 months at least already planned
plan
and
out.
booked.
Okay, okay, very organized. That's the
Yeah,
operational excellence coming out.
yeah, in a way, because I mean, you know, that's basically it's, because my son he just graduated, so but before that he would be bound by the school holiday times, so you just know exactly when he would have time to travel, and then you just allocate. So
What's on your next hit list? Where's the next one?
uh, we're going to Antarctica in a couple of weeks time.
That's insane.
Yeah,
And
so that's yeah, so that's kind of, I mean, in a way, talking about the bucket list, it closes off the continents list. So
So that's the last continent you got to
Yeah, it's
visit.
the last continent.
Was that the
Yeah.
reason for choosing Antarctica, or was there?
Well, in a way, that's actually what I just say. That's easier for me now because my son graduated, so he has a bit of spare time now. So I can. It's easier because Antarctica is very difficult in terms of it's high on the costs, very high on the costs. And if you do if you try to link it to the school holidays, the only time we could do that was over the Christmas to New Year, and that is super expensive. So like you take the regular Antarctica price multiplied by the factor, I don't know, 2, 3, and then it's just like out of the window. And currently we are not bound to that anymore, so that's a bit easier. I've
Yeah.
been to. I mean, I love North. Maybe being a Russian, that also has something to do with that. I love North. We've been to places like northern Finland, Greenland, these type of the places. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's empty and beautiful. That's what I like.
Yeah, I think if you're choosing the right times to travel, I'm sure if you put one of those box plot diagrams on people who are traveling during the December period,
Yeah, yeah. It
you'll
would be
have
ideal.
some ability to save on resources there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
thank you, Maxim. This has been an awesome chat. I know that your time is precious, but
Sure. Yeah,
I
no
learned
problem.
a lot from it myself, and I think it's really good to understand the way that you're approaching solving this problem, especially with your operational mindset. And I think it is a
Okay.
really interesting way to go, especially for companies who are looking to, again, look at all of the knowledge gaps and skill gaps when it comes to operational excellence and ways to actually deliver an uplift in understanding of these key methodologies and foundational principles.
Hmm.
Because if you do the foundations right in business, a lot of the time it is just a lot of foundational work
Absolutely.
that needs to be done,
Absolutely.
and you can
Yeah.
overcomplicate the process. Very easy to do, and
Yeah.
having a bit of an outside perspective, a bit of resources that you provide, I think that's an awesome, amazing kind of way to tackle these types of inefficiencies within these manufacturing companies. So thank you, Maxim. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. My pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Okay.